that the Negro is not equal to the white man, that slavery, subordination to the superior race, is his natural and normal condition. Any guesses who that might be? Anybody? Jeff Davis, Stephen Douglas? Close. Both Democrats. Alexander Stephens, the Vice President of the Confederate States of America. Democrat. So, what did the Republicans say in contrast to these kinds of statements? That the normal condition of all the territory of the United States is that of freedom. That as our Republican fathers, when they had abolished slavery in all our national territory, ordained that no person should be deprived of life, liberty, or property. We deny the authority of Congress, of a territorial legislature, or of any individuals to give legal existence to slavery in any territory of the United States. Some of you already have this. That, ladies and gentlemen, is from the 1860 Republican Party platform that Abraham Lincoln won on. Has anybody heard that before? The RNC probably doesn't have this. I know the RPOF doesn't have this.
It will.
They will. And could it make a difference? And every single time they say racist. The 1860 Republican Party platform, promoting the idea of individual liberty. No person should be deprived of life, liberty, or property. I know that somebody here knows where that's from. Anybody here? Can you tell me where that's from?
Fourth Amendment.
Fifth Amendment. Without due process of law. That's the finishing part of that. That's from the Fifth Amendment. The Republicans went back to the Fifth Amendment and said, listen, you guys put it in there. No person should be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. And yet slavery still exists. So it should be gone. And that's how they justified it. Okay, by the way, people have asked me, was the Civil War about slavery? I said, I'm a little bit of a coward. I'm not going to answer that. It's too much of a hot potato. But what I will do is I'll tell you what they said. You see, the Democrats wrote secession documents, declarations. Just like our Declaration of Independence, they wrote declarations saying why they were doing what they were doing. Please raise your hand, ladies and gentlemen, anybody, please raise your hand if in school you have ever studied secession documents. Raise your hand. You've ever studied secession documents in school. Now, my question is, they don't want us to read Uncle Tom's Cabin. They obviously don't want us to learn about secession documents. Why would they not want us to learn about secession documents or Uncle Tom's Cabin? Because they don't want us to know what
really went on.
What's that?
What really went on prior to the Civil War.
They don't want us to know what's in it. By the way, you guys aren't strange or abnormal. For 2 years now, I've been asking this question. Not one person, somebody shook their head, but not one person has raised their hand to say, yes, we have studied secession documents in school. Yes, we know that the Democrats wrote secession documents, and this is what they said. Not one person. And I go from high school to 90-year-olds, which means that this is not taught anywhere in school. And by the way, it is an explanation from their end as to why they're doing what they're doing. And nobody studies it. Just say something to you.
They do in homeschool.
In homeschool they do. That's good. We'll take Mississippi, and I have all four of them. The four of them are written. I put them in my book so everybody can see. Declaration of the immediate causes which induce and justify the secession of the state of Mississippi from the federal union. In the momentous step which our state has taken dissolving its connection with the government of which we so long formed a part, it is but just that we should declare the prominent reasons which have induced our course. 1. Our position is thoroughly identified with the institution of slavery, the greatest material interest of the world. There was no choice left us but submission to the mandates of abolition or a dissolution of the Union. The Republican Party refuses the admission of new slave states into the Union and seeks to extinguish it by confining it within its present limits, denying the power of expansion. Raise your hand if you've ever heard that before. Now, if you've never heard that before, which is such matter-of-fact information, that interesting nobody wants you to know that information. Ladies and gentlemen, as I've said before, it's all about control. It's all about control. The Civil War. In the Confederate population, there were 9 million people. 9 million people. Inside that population, there were 3.9 million slaves. 3.9 million inside the 9 million. How many owned a slave? About 5%. About 5% owned a slave. By the way, when I learned this information years ago, it was shocking to me. Because as a black man in the United States of America, you think that everybody in the South had a slave. They were flipping slaves around like crazy. I mean, it's easy. Oh, I'm just going to go down to the auction block and get a slave. 5%. Who were your congressmen, senators, governors, state legislators, newsmen? Who controlled the information flow? Less than 1%. Owned 100 slaves or more. Your magnets. That, ladies and gentlemen, counts to about 1,800 people that controlled Southern society. 1,800 people that controlled what everybody thought was going on. Now, I'm going to use you as an example. We're going to do two scenarios. We're going to do two scenarios. Alan is a yeoman farmer. He's got his own land. He's got 2 strapping young boys with him. He's got a wife who's pregnant. Bear with me. He's got a wife who's pregnant. No slaves. But he's working his own land. He is what you call your quintessential redneck. Why? Because he's out in the fields working his own land. I, on the other hand, have 200 slaves.